Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop, Readers Advisory, Ideas and Practice, presented by Booklist. My name is Susan McGuire, and I'm the Senior Editor for Collection Management and Library Outreach here at Booklist. We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Penguin Random House Library Marketing, for their generous support of this program. We will send out some additional resources and recommendations from our sponsor in tomorrow's follow-up materials, and we'll showcase some of those resources throughout the program. Before we begin with today's program, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to all of today's slide presentations were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. We will send PDFs of all these slides, along with additional materials from our sponsor, to everyone tomorrow. If you have any trouble locating these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable them on your screen, please look for and click the Show Captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of them at any time by selecting Caption Settings. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we encourage everyone to submit your questions in the Q&A box. Our panelists will be grabbing questions from the box throughout the presentation, and we will be sure to pass along all unanswered questions to our panelists after the webinar so they can follow up via email. The chat box will also remain open throughout the entire program, and we will send the chat messages along with our follow-up materials to everyone tomorrow. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates the standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We are midway through our afternoon of workshops planned for today, all designed to keep you up to speed on both the ideas and practice that will enhance your RA game. You can see today's schedule on the screen. We're about to begin the Enchanting Escape session. And please note that you are welcome to attend all of these sessions and will receive a recording of every session tomorrow. So let's get started with our next workshop, Enchanting Escapes, Romantasy Readers Advisory for Libraries, presented by Rachel Koury and Austin Ferraro. Rachel is the branch manager for the Irwin branch of the Harnett County Public Library System, which is a growing area in central North Carolina. She has worked in libraries for about 10 years across all types of libraries. Austin is a teen services librarian based in Northern Virginia public libraries following an escape from academia. He reviews YA for Booklist and SLJ, and his superpower is using escape rooms and murder mysteries to trick teens into expanding their reading horizons. Welcome, Rachel and Austin. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Let me just get into my screen and we will get started. Can everybody see the screen okay? Okay, excellent. So we will get started. As Susan has said, our session today is called Enchanting Escapes. It is about Romantasy Readers Advisories for Libraries. As she has already said, my name is Rachel Koury, and I am co-presenting with Austin. I am the branch manager of the Irwin Public Library. It is one of the smaller branches of the Harnett County Public Library System, and I have been the branch manager for just under 2 years now. I am currently reading Dear Debbie by Frida McFadden, and I am currently listening to Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. And this is actually an audiobook that I'm listening to for my Romantasy book club that I do here at the Irwin Public Library, which we will get into that book club a little bit more later in the presentation.
Hey, and I'm Austin. I'm a teen services librarian at Brambleton Library, which is in Loudoun County, Virginia. I've been in teen services for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was in a special film library at a university. I'm currently reading Honor and Heresy by Max Francis, which is a fun sort of mystery, romantasy type thing. And then I'm listening to Whisper by Tal Bauer, because if your audiobook is not 30 hours long, are you really listening to an audiobook?
So the overview of what we're going to be talking about today is we're just going to go over things like Romantasy basics, And then we're going to talk about navigating content, resources, and expanded titles. And then, of course, at the end, we are going to have our Q&A. So the Romantasy very basics. So our previews are going to be what is Romantasy, key titles, and cozy Romantasy, which is a personal favorite of mine. So first of all, what is Romantasy? Romantasy is a highly successful marketing term. It is a sort of relatively new recent genre, and it is a genre where romance meets fantasy. So like love plus magic plus varying stakes. It has a lot of emotional depth, escapism. And so for adults, like I said a little bit earlier, I do a book club that is Romantasy book club only at the Irwin Public Library. And it is actually one of the few, if not the only Romantasy book club in the state of North Carolina. So I'm actually really excited to talk about that a little bit more if anybody has some questions about that. But also just it shows that the popularity is growing among adults. So a lot of the people in my book club, they're looking for reinterpretations of classical myths. They are looking for a strong focus on found family and an often spicier content. That's not to say that they don't enjoy some of the non-spicier things in life, but they do also enjoy that spicy content that is more in adult versus young adult or teen.
So when I'm talking about Romantasy with my teens, what they're often looking for is second world fantasy. So fantasy where it's not in our world, it's in, Magic Land, somewhere over there. Or portal fantasy, which is a fantasy world that you can access from our world through a portal. Think like Narnia. And they don't usually want super heavy magic mechanics. They want the magic to be like a vibe. With teens, we're also usually looking at books with strong biological family connections. You'll see a lot of sisters, for example, or like an older sister with a younger brother or sister. It's usually the older sibling, but generally stronger biological family connections. And then usually there is less, more physical romance than there is in adult romantasy. For both, we are often going to see characters in the like 17 to 25 range. We are going to be looking at dual point of view storytelling with complex protagonists, often in enemies to lovers or like slow burn or other like forbidden type romance. Magic is metaphor, much like a lot of fantasy. And again, themes of choice, destiny, like a lot of fantasy. And I would say more so in Romantasy than other genres of fantasy, we are going to be looking at core politics and intrigue. So this is a chart. I love charts. On the chart, we can see that Romantasy is not a thing that people Googled until like 2024. And then now it is higher than it's ever been. And that's really, thank you, TikTok. So, Rachel, if you could.
Yep.
And then, yeah, you're good. So for basic foundational titles with YA, we're going to be looking at A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, Caraval, The Cruel Prince, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, Serpent and Dove, and Divine Rivals. Is A Court of Thorns and Roses YA? Great question. There's a reason it's on both these slides. It was originally published in YA, but since the A Court of Silver Flames came out, it has been officially moved by the publisher to adult, and that came along with the cover change, which is why we have the different cover on.
Yes. So A Court of Thorns and Roses definitely did initially start off as young adult. And you can definitely tell when reading it that there are the spice level is a whole lot lower. The language and just you can just kind of tell that it's a lot more. They were wanting to market it towards teens. But as it progressed, I would even say definitely even by book two, to be quite honest, that it was firmly pretty much in the adult category. And then, as Austin said, by this last book, it was 100% in that adult category. The spice was a lot more prevalent and that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where ACOTAR books 6 and 7, which were just announced. So that's really exciting. And I think very timely for this. Book 6 is coming out in October of this year. So I'm really excited to see where it's going to kind of go from here. I had seen a question in the chat about where I get my questions for my book club. And honestly, it's just like any other book club. I use publishers' questions. I use just kind of key themes and titles throughout. I don't really change my way of determining what my other questions are going to be than any differently than I would for any other book club. So I hope that's helpful at all. Some other key adult titles are From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. She also has some other series that are also kind of in the romantasy genre. And another question that I just saw in is how would I define romantasy versus fantasy romance? I would say romantasy to me definitely has, I think that it has a good mix of the two, whereas fantasy romance is more fantasy with less romance. At least to me, that's kind of how I interpret it. So if anybody else has any thoughts on that topic, definitely feel free to add them in the chat, or if Austin wants to contribute to it. Fourth Wing is a huge key adult title because this is, other than A Court of Thorns and Roses, from what I can tell, I was like the first one to really explode on Book Talk. Like this was the one, like this is the first book that I heard romantasy, the term used all over the place. And the first romantasy book that I really picked up, I read Fourth Wing before I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. And yes, that somebody said it is definitely in the adult category. We also have a book called A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. We have Naomi Novik's Uprooted, and then we also have The Night Circus. All of those are key romantasy titles. A lot of them have been covered in my romantasy book club already. So since my romantasy book club is still kind of newish and we're still kind of finding our sea legs, we have been kind of exploring different types of things. Like we read Butcher and Blackbird and was like, okay, that's not really romantasy. And then like right now we're reading Realm Breaker by Victoria Aveyard, and we're like, okay, that's more fantasy, not really romantasy. So I think it's okay for people to kind of need some time to realize, okay, what is this romantasy? Is this romance fantasy? Is it just plain fantasy? That kind of thing. And that is totally okay. Something that I really love is the cozy romantasy. So what is cozy romantasy? It is books like Legends and Lattes, The Spell Shop, and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Austin will go into the young adult titles in just a second, but these types of books are lower stakes, lower tension. They tend to be more common in adults. The setting is flavor rather than mechanics. And it's a really good start for readers who are coming from straight up romance, because that's another thing too, is that when people are coming from straight romance or they're coming from straight fantasy, it's finding that like perfect kind of sweet spot. And yes, can't spell treason without T. Yes, absolutely. So these cozy romantasies are wonderful for those who are like, okay, I've loved romance. Now let's kind of add some of that mythical quality. And yes, Agnes Ogworth's Mystical Cat Shelter, I am dying to read it. So if Austin wants to take it away on young adult ones.
Yeah, and before I go into the actual titles, I am going to go ahead and just comment on something I'm seeing in the chat, which is the spice aspect, I guess, the explicit content part. Romantasy often does have more explicit content, but it is not a requirement of the genre. It is just often there, just like it is often there in standard romance. You know, your mileage may vary. Romantasy that is cozy, like cozy romance, often doesn't have spicier content. So like a couple common young adult titles is going to be Coffee Shop in an Alternate Universe. Barnes and Noble recently featured that as like one of their picks of the month. Brewed with Love, which is super cute, sapphic, and then Practical Rules for Cursed Witches, which is like actually really, really good. I'm not really a cozy anything person, but that one is like one of the top books of. Rachel, you're muted.
Thank you, Austin. So the next section that we're going to go into is navigating content. And we talked about that just a little bit of like finding that sweet spot and that kind of thing. So we're wanting to know, okay, what's out there? What are readers looking for? We're also going to dive into the reference interview a little bit, as well as interpreting marketing language. So what's out there? So we have the types of romance, which is slow burn versus instant love, spicy versus closed door. We have our tropes, such as enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, magical academies, forced proximity, fake dating, all that good stuff. And then finally, we have types of fantasy, urban versus second world versus portal contemporary versus historical paranormal romance, all the different types of things. So, and I'm seeing Assistant to the Villain on here, which is amazing because I'm choosing that for my book club and my book club pick for July. So it sounds like it's pretty well received. So I'm really excited about all of that. Austin is going to talk about the format.
There are words here that are confusing to many people. So we're going to go over them real quick. So all of these are different types of formats that often have romantasy content. Manga, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It is Japanese graphic novels. It's read right to left. There is so much romantasy content in manga. The convenient thing about manga is if you flip the book over, it's going to have a rating. And the rating what the rating means does depend on the actual publisher, but it's a really good rule of thumb, or not rule of thumb, but like guideline for ages. And then we're going to also have manhwa, which is Korean. If you see it spelled with a U instead of a W, it's Chinese. It's pronounced the same way, but different origin. This is typically read left to right. It looks more like a combination of an American comic and manga in terms of style. Then we're going to have a light novel. Light novels are a combination of manga or manhwa panels and then also like paragraph style chapter book text. And then we're going to go into danmei, which is adult. It is 100% adult all the time. It might start out looking not adult, but trust me, it gets adult. Much like light novels, it is a combination of illustration and text. Danmei is Chinese serial web novels. They're very interesting. They're also very gay. So if you are out there looking for heated rivalry, but make it magic, danmei is like your go-to. Seven Seas is the one that does publish a lot of it right now. My personal recommendation is going to be to start with Heaven Official's Blessing. But if you're really into like high level, high drama content, starting with anything by Meat Bun Doesn't Eat Meat is going to be where you want to start. And if you do Readers Advisory, especially for teens, I highly recommend learning more about these formats a little bit more in depth. Just to answer a question in the chat that I never thought I would answer in my professional life, I would not call Omegaverse cozy romantasy. If you would like to discuss where I would classify Omegaverse, my email is going to be at the end. I have a lot of feelings about it. Feel free to shoot me a message. But in short, I would not inherently call Omegaverse romantasy at all, actually. And okay, diversity in Romantasy, YA edition. Any sort of diversity that's out there is in Romantasy. It's just going to be harder to find a lot of the time. So we have a lot of queer representation. Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens is what I'm going with in terms of my example here. Anything by F.T. Lukens is a personal favorite, but there is a lot of queer rep available. Non-Eurocentric settings we have with Spice Road. Again, it's there. You just have to look for it. Where Shadows Meet is, I believe most of the characters are Black, but it does generally have a BIPOC default. And then books like The Floating World go into Romantasy based on different mythologies.
So what's out there? Adult edition. So for non-Eurocentric setting, we have City of Others by Jared Poon. For queer representation, we have Son of the Morning, The Catalyst Moon, which is book 1 of the Incursion series that has a disabled female main character. So that's good there. And then of course, T. Kingfisher has mature characters, and by mature characters, it just means over 30. So you know, mature characters, because we're good like that when we're over 30. But in short, Romantasy is complex. There's a lot out there. I really feel that there's something for everybody. So what are readers looking for? So adults, we want more complex romantic relationships. We want a richer world building, higher emotional stakes, and mature themes like spice. Again, with adult books, like obviously not everybody wants all spice all the time, but obviously more than a teen would be wanting and needing and looking for. As for teens,
so for teens, we're really looking for romance, but not like that. Like, we want romance that's interesting, but not gooey. Like, romance good, the sort of thing that you don't want to like watch your parents doing, less so. Realistic, fantastical plot points. They want to be able to relate to characters, but they also do want a fantasy element. Substantial world building. Teens love world building. Even if they don't necessarily want heavy mechanics, they do want a good, lush world. Teens especially also feel like they've read it all. They typically haven't, because they're typically, 15. But they do want something new, something exciting. They don't want things that are formulaic, which is kind of where your diverse reads are going to come in.
Okay, sorry about that. I clicked ahead a little bit too soon. So for the reference interview for adults, so we want to start with appeal factors, not just genre labels, and focus on tropes. So are you drawn to certain tropes? Do you like high fantasy or low urban fantasy? Do you like fae and magical creatures, or do you prefer magic to be a little bit more on the back burner? Read-alikes are super, super helpful. Do you like the tone dark and intense, or cozy and whimsical? Have you read romance before? What are some that you enjoyed? Something with fantasy. Have you read fantasy before? What are some things that you've enjoyed? You also want to clarify that heat level and even age category. We want to use non-judgmental and reader-centered language, so we definitely don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable or weird for asking for something that has a lot of spice to it or heat level to it, but also at the same time is we don't want to be like, oh, you don't want that either. Like we want to be very non-judgmental. What the reader wants, we just want to find something that they like. And then of course that level of romance intensity, and what are you more comfortable with the book. There are lots of adults who enjoy more of the YA side of life when it comes to romance intensity. And then of course both ends of the spectrum. And then, of course, offer a mix of popular and lesser known options. Because one unfortunate thing with offering the popular stuff is access to it. As a library, we don't want to make them have to go out to Barnes & Noble or buy it on Kindle to be able to access it. We want them to access it through our libraries, obviously. So obviously, like things like when Fourth Wing next comes, the next one for that series comes out. Obviously, when the next ACOTAR books come out, there's going to be a wait list a mile long. So when people are waiting for those things, we want to be able to give them options that will keep them satiated right then and right now. Because we obviously want them to leave happy. We want them to leave with a book in their hand or something on Libby, whichever way. I noticed somebody mentioning something about the narrator. The narrator is also good if you prefer audio for those types of things. I listen to audiobooks almost exclusively myself because that's just easier with my lifestyle and being busy. So yeah, you obviously want to be able to say like, okay, this narrator does a great job, or do you like the dual point of view, like in Quicksilver and Brimstone, the dual point of view is great. The narrators do a great job, but you know, we wanted to make sure that we have that in there as well.
So for teens, when you're doing a reference interview, the first and foremost thing that you need to remember is that teens use words they hear. They don't necessarily use words they understand. And Romantasy is a very adult-centric space a lot of the time. So when you get a 12-year-old walking up to you and saying, hello, I would like dark romance, you don't have to have a heart attack. You can clarify, what do you mean by dark romance? And like 9.5 times out of 10, they mean a book with a morally great main character. Thank God. So with teens, you're going to start by establishing a baseline. What is their experience with romantasy, romance, or fantasy? And then you're going to vibe match. And this is kind of where it gets a little interesting because they often don't feel comfortable answering direct questions. So you're going to want to use your genre knowledge to figure out what their comfort level is. If they say, I loved A Court of Thorns and Roses, and you say, awesome, did you read the latest book? And they say, yes, it was wonderful. Then you know that they are either comfortable self-censoring, so skipping the parts that make them feel uncomfortable, or they weren't uncomfortable. Either way, you're not their parent, go forth. Self-censorship is really big with romantasy, especially because the vast majority of teens, when they see something in a book that they are uncomfortable with, they will either put the book down or skip to the next chapter. There are some teens that don't, but for the most part, statistically speaking, there have been studies done on it. Teens will self-censor. And when you do get to the point of like making recommendations, you want to go off the beaten path. They're all on TikTok. They've all heard about, your standard list of stuff. They've all heard about The Cruel Prince, Caraval, whatever. So you're going to want to find something that's a little bit unique. And then you want to use a genuine personal connection to the book. Even if you don't read romantasy or you don't really read YA, that's fine. You can just say, oh yeah, I read, on this thing that someone really liked this book. Or you can say, oh yeah, I saw a TikTok with this one creator who really liked this book. Or if you do read YA and romantasy, you can say, oh, hey, like this was a great book. Or, oh, this book is like this other book that I really enjoyed. Just the more connected you are to the advisory that you're giving, the more the teen is likely to pick up the book. I convinced a teen to read a thriller last week, specifically because I picked up the book and said, this really freaked me out. Nothing else needed. A teen was like, yes, I want to read that. I was like, you don't want to? Okay, sure, go for it. But yeah, so that's kind of where you want to go, is just.
Yes. And I mean, obviously that still is very much the same for any reader's advisory. Like whenever you can give any kind of personal recommendation, and you can show that enthusiasm toward it, obviously it's going to make people that much more excited about it as well. So as for interpreting marketing for adults, the indication is romance forward, explicit, high heat content. So we want to talk about spicy, steamy, sizzling, smutty, high heat, open door kind of stuff. Or we can say for fans of such as we can say things like darkly seductive and dangerous attraction, that kind of thing. For somebody who may want romance forward or emotionally character driven romantasy, we use words like sweeping, epic romance, aching, devastating, slow burn, fated mates, enemies to lovers, forbidden love, heart wrenching, all that good stuff. And then when we get our plot forward fantasy with strong romantic subplots, we use the bulk of description that emphasizes the world building, the politics, the magic systems, all of that stuff. We say things like epic, gripping, high stakes, propulsive, immersive, all of that kind of thing. And then for vibe batches, we just can say like who has featured blurbs, like is there an author that maybe had a featured blurb on a book that they want to listen to or read, and that kind of thing. As for teens,
so for teens, if we are seeing something, especially if it's on the cover, steamy, sexy, sizzling, anything that says spice, you are looking at a book that likely has like romance forward, adult romantasy comparable content. Anything also that says crossover appeal for adult readers of YA, new adult. I was on Edelweiss at one point and I saw a book that was being advertised as having just enough spice for adult readers, which was certainly a statement. And if we're looking at something that says cozy, whimsical, swoony, electrifying, sweet, delightful, heartfelt, stuff like that, you're still looking at romance forward, but it's going to be more school age teen centric content. If you're seeing things where the bulk of the description is on story elements, not intensity of content, it says thrilling, stuff like that, it is likely a more plot forward romantasy. Again, still more school age teen centric content. And like with adults, you're going to want to vibe match who has a featured blurb, because that is going to give you also a good idea of what you can assume about the content. But again, this is all interpretation. There are no hard and fast rules for this.
And then we also have for resources and expanded titles. I noticed that several of you have been asking about Novelist. I've seen romance.io. I've seen all types of things. So this one is where we're going to be kind of helping that and answering some of those questions. For adult resources, we have things like Novelist Plus. You can do GN Romantasy plus award winners. So that way, that means the genre is romantasy plus award winners. We also can do like related subgenres such as urban contemporary fantasy, paranormal fantasy, themes and appeal factors. We also can do all about romance, which has a friendly interface with extensive filters. It is adult centric, but it does have some YA titles there. We also have She Reads Romance, which is woman centric, adult centric. And then we also have RT book reviews. So this can have a ton of book lists, lots of genres, but the YA features are a little bit outdated.
And then for YA resources, again, you can use Novelist. As I've mentioned in the chat, I don't super love Novelist for teen readers advisory in general. But you can try Romantasy, romantic fantasy, or fantasy romance. It's really not as well tagged as adult either. You're gonna want to not sleep on light novels and manga. There is a lot there, and teens love graphic novels right now. And again, caution with Don May, especially Seven Seas, because it is you start and you think it's fine, and then it gets real intense real quick. Epic Reads is also a good resource. It's a book promotion platform run by HarperCollins, so it is trying to sell you things, but it's not a bad thing to look at. It's okay on diversity. It's YA centric, but it's not reliably YA. The Hurricane Wars is currently featured on there, for example. And then you can also look at Book Riot, which has book lists galore if you've never used it. YA and adult are featured, but it's pretty reliable in terms of designation. And the diversity stuff is great. There are a lot of lists that have very specific focuses that are also diverse in terms of representation and genre. When you are doing Romantasy, YA, Readers Advisory, you need to make sure that you are double checking that the book you are looking at is YA.
So what is YA versus not YA? And Austin can go into this a little bit more as well. But of course, when assessing, you can use industry resources like publishers' websites, Booklist, obviously, Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and secondarily, you can use things like Book Riot, Fierce Reads, LGBTQ Reads, etc. And then, Austin, do you want to take away the other half?
Yeah. So anything that's crowdsourced, you're going to not ever rely on. The internet does not know what YA is. If you ask 4 people on the internet, what is YA, you will get 5 different answers. So when you're looking at something crowdsourced like romance.io, Reddit, Book Talk, Roundups, that sort of thing, unless you are very, very confident that the person you are speaking to understands that YA is, for our purposes, grades 7 through 12, you are not going to want to rely on that at all. Romance.io classifies a lot of things as teen that are not at all teen. I personally use it for my own reading, but it's not something that I would use professionally in terms of like YA Readers Advisory. There is also kind of a like, what's young adult, what's new adult, because is new adult real? Is new adult not real? Like there's a lot of sort of weird little interplay. So it's much, much better to rely on industry resources that have that strict definition of what YA is. And just as a sort of general thing when talking about books that have more adult content or more older teen content, I do think that using the phrase age relevant is better than using the phrase age appropriate. And that's, mostly because every single family who has teens has a different understanding of what is correct for their family. And every single family is going to be a little different. And it's not really our call, if it's not our kids, whether or not that's appropriate. If we're talking about age relevant content, we're talking about, is this content developmentally relevant to where this teen is? So you can pretty accurately say, developmentally speaking, your average 7th grader is going to be here. And based on that, this book does have content that is relevant to them. That also, when we're talking about the Alex Award type crossover stuff, that's what we're looking at, is this book is written for adults, but it is age relevant to teenagers at a certain point. And you'll see this too when it says crossover appeal. Like I said, someone was talking about Alex Awards and the Fourth Wing winning an Alex Award. That is, crossover. Like it's for adults, but older teens might get something out of it. And that's, again, is it age relevant? Realistically speaking, a lot of juniors and seniors in high school are seeing that content in other places, are having those experiences in some cases. So it's really what is relevant to the specific teen and where they're at developmentally.
I did it again. Okay, so why do we want to go beyond Book Talk? For one, Book Talk is already easily accessible to many teens and adults, and the same titles tend to circulate between these platforms, whether it's Book Talk, BookTube, Bookstagram. And like I said earlier, when they're really popular, it can also be really hard to get these titles in their hands because the waitlist is a bajillion years long. So you want to be able to have them be able to leave with something that day from your library. Also, readers want to switch it up. More and more influencers are wondering if they're getting over Romantasy. We're getting complaints of formulaic plots and characters, and then of course just expanding horizons. Readers, we want to have ideas of their own. Can these problems, can we see a little bit more diversity? And so we don't always necessarily see that when we're going just based on Book Talk books.
And I'm not going to go into every single book on this page, but this is just a couple of things to consider when you're looking beyond book talk. I put little pieces of information that you will find relevant underneath each book. I am going to specifically shout out all the stars in the daylight sky because it is a super, super cute, like, fae romance. And it takes place in Scotland, and it was very, very fun.
For for adults, we have things like The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I think could also probably go into some cozy fantasy as well. Some authors like K.A. Tucker for paranormal things. And again, just being able to get some of those books in their hands a little bit more available than things that are on Book Talk.
And these are just some of my personal favorites. Again, more information below. And I'm going to specifically shout out Prince of the Sorrows because it's self-published, but it's really, really, really good. I read the first one and then proceeded to read the other three in like a 2 or 3 day period. And it does have strong crossover appeal to older teens. There is explicit content, but it's kind of in the like middle of the road in terms of how explicit it is. And it's just a very fun, a little bit different than normal sort of fae.
And I see somebody in the chat mentioning graphic audio for audiobooks. Yes, I absolutely adore them. That is how I listened to A Court of Thorns and Roses for the first time, and it makes all the difference in the world. Some of my favorites, I do really like a good YA book, I'm not gonna lie. Divine Rivals was my first where I didn't know that it was romantasy, but I loved it and it's absolutely amazing. So I'll give that one a shout out. But basically, as you can see by almost every single one of these, I love me some enemies to lovers. So other than the Spell Shop, that can be found in all of my recommendations. That and Found Family, I think, are probably my two faves. Okay, so now we have our Q&A. Also, please feel free to email either one of us. We are always happy to chat more and more and more about books, about romantasy, about anything. I do notice that in the Q&A, they asked a little bit more about my Romantasy book club. Yes, we do supply copies of the books. It is harder to get multiple copies of certain genre titles. That is absolutely true. And we have had some patrons who will donate copies if it's something that they feel very strongly about, that they really think that everybody else in the group would really appreciate. So, and also I just do my best to make sure that we have enough of these copies. And when choosing books to discuss, I make sure to look through our Cardinal catalog system and see, okay, how new is it? Do other libraries carry it? We are going to be reading Shield of Sparrow soon, so we had to wait for a lot of libraries to get it off that 6-month hold. So that's why we're reading it a little bit closer to when the second book of that series comes out. So, you know, we just do our best. But other than that, does anybody else have any questions for us? Yes, exactly. ILL is perfect for getting some books, getting other books. Yes, absolutely.
I am just going to jump in real quick because there was a lot of talk about Sarah J. Maas. You know, is she YA? Is she not YA?
Yes.
I have very excessive and nuanced opinions on that. So if anyone is interested in having a back and forth about why I do feel that her first 3 are pretty good in terms of YA, please email me because I do think it's a very, very, very nuanced discussion that is not super great in webinar format.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Lots of opinions there. Lots of hot takes on that. I did get another question about the Romantasy Book Club discussion questions. Again, I just get them a lot of times from the publisher. or just obviously I read them myself, so just kind of themes and ideas that I get from that. But I mean, honestly, it's really no different than when I come up for book club discussion questions for my adult general fiction book club or my juvenile fiction book club. But if anybody does have, because I know some of these books, it can be really difficult to get questions from the publisher, so they can be a little bit difficult to come up with. So if anybody ever needs any help, like, definitely reach out to me. Absolutely. Another question is it possible to show Austin's book talk slide again? Absolutely. All of these will be available, I believe, tomorrow. We'll be able to see all of our slides. You'll be able to see the chat, all of that good stuff. For addressing gaps in orders for titles that are self-published, that I have definitely struggled with a lot. I have had some patrons who, or members of the book club, who will donate copies of self-published books because they feel very strongly about them, whether then they feel that they are something that they really want the book club to discuss together. So that has been very helpful to us. That has been very gracious to us. And then what gave me the idea of just a plain romantasy book club versus a genre, a full-on genre book club. It started out at another branch of our library system in Coates. Unfortunately, that librarian got another position at a different county, and the patrons loved the idea of it so much that they asked me to pick it up. So I have done that. So obviously, it's just that the idea for it came from the desire, the need, listening to your patrons and what they want. So just kind of doing your best to fulfill all of that. So I believe that is everything that I've seen from my Q&A. And I know that we are about to hop off in just a couple of minutes, but did anybody have any last minute questions for Austin or myself? Yay, I'm glad that it looks like everybody enjoyed it. I am so looking forward to going back to this chat and seeing some of these book recommendations that everybody has been giving. These are all amazing, and I am super excited to read more Romantasy. And like I said, if anybody wants to reach out to Austin or myself, we are both very passionate about the genre and are more than happy to give you any more knowledge or just be nerds together and get some book recs, you know? So thank you guys and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Austin. That was fascinating. Thank you for, as Rachel said, being nerds together. That's really a beautiful sentiment there. And to all of our attendees here today, we need your help. Tell us which tools are most useful to you and your staff during real-time RA interactions with adult patrons. We want to know what you use when a patron approaches you at the desk or in the stacks, or calls the library or sends a chat request. Use the QR code on the screen or the tiny URL, or click on the link that will be sent in the follow-up email materials tomorrow. Our final workshop, the 4 Cornerstones of Reader Interest, will begin in a few minutes. While you wait, please enjoy these resources and recommendations from our sponsor, Penguin Random House Library Marketing.